Hey everyone, welcome to the sixth episode of Tice's Tech Track. In this podcast, I am Tice and I'm going to take you on my personal journey of building online businesses, starting startups, failing a lot, learning a lot, and hopefully by the end of the ride, get to some success in terms of, financial success, but also just in general contribution with some of the skills that I have in coding and that sort of stuff. And yeah, that's basically what I've been up to for the past couple months now. And it's going okay. There's definitely been a lot of learnings, not a whole lot of good results yet, but I'm definitely feeling that I'm progressing. And one of the big steps that has recently happened is I finally launched this podcast. So I'm very proud to say that we are live. I made a new channel for it on YouTube. And also, guys, I recently published the podcast to Spotify as well. And I'm actually going to look into some of the other platforms like iTunes and stuff, because apparently it's very easy to set it up via Spotify. I actually found it already very easy to set up via Spotify. Like I was a bit impressed by how easy it is to basically start a podcast these days, and it's probably also one of the reasons why there are just so many of them these days. But I'm super happy with how the channel came out as well. It's so funny. I hired a freelancer to do the logo design and like the banner and also the thumbnails basically. And it was a very funny interaction. Like it started out, and I don't know why. I just felt like he was like a chill dude, you know. So I started calling, "Hey, yo, bro, can you make this for me?" And sort of like along the process, we've kind of become buddies in some ways, like online buddies. Of course, I don't know him personally or anything. But all I know is that he's from India, and like it's how freelancer.com is basically the website I use to create these designs, and it's a bit like sad because how it works is you set out a contest, so people can basically already give like submissions. So I had like a logo contest and then also like a YouTube banner contest, and so without paying people, you can let them like submit submissions to that contest. And like I had like, I don't know, like 120 submissions. I mean, half of them were like just, AI generated or just very like basic, so I just discarded of those. But there were at least like 10 submissions that were like actually good. And how it works is then you like pick one winner, and that winner is gonna get the money. And it was only like, I don't know, like $40 or $50 that I set this contest out for. So it's, I don't know, it feels like a very competitive thing to do, or very like, because you have to make like a lot of submissions because the chances of you being picked are pretty slim. You know what I mean? Even if you make very good ones, because I had like at least like 4 very good ones that I could have easily picked. And it was basically a random bet that I picked this one. So, but yeah, I'm very happy how it came out, and that's very cool stuff. And also, we already got 30 subscribers, so that's pretty awesome. Some of you came from, I think, the TravelingTice channel, because I made like a little shout out on there. I have one colleague who's listening. Bao, shout out to you. And it's very nice. Like I really do like it, because it's sort of like it's really like this is like a next step in putting myself out there, because I have not really shared this part of my life so much online. Like I used to share a lot, especially when I was traveling. I was making like a daily vlog, so I was basically sharing everything I was doing then. And I wanted to keep that outlet, like that channel, very travel related. So I never really got to share a lot of like this tech journey that I've actually already been on for 6 years. Like from when I started learning coding, that was already like about 6 years ago, like back in 2018. When I was traveling, I wanted to find like a job that I could do while traveling. That's how it all started. And so that's how that came about. So very happy with that. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Even if you listen to this on Spotify, just go to YouTube, search Tice's Tech Track, and subscribe. Well, I mean, yeah, you can do it. It would help out the channel a lot if you do so. So that's greatly appreciated. Anyway, today I'm not going to do a catch-up. I actually have a bit of a different topic for today. It's also a bit of an actual topic because I started to experiment with this fairly recently. Like, I think the first time I tried this, it's called monk mode. So this is also like in the title. It's basically a period of time where you shut off pretty much everything, like any social media consumption, even YouTube, or just basically like pretty much anything for hyperfocus, so you can like focus on the thing that you need to focus on, whether that's like your job or in my case, building startups. And yeah, it's called monk mode, and today I want to basically talk about my experience with it. If you don't know monk mode, it is somewhat well known, I think. I first heard the term from a person, a very interesting individual called Iman Gatsi. I'll leave a link below to his YouTube channel if you don't know him. He is basically he's a young guy. He's younger than me, like about a year younger or something. He's like 23 or something. And he's basically been grinding since he was like 14 years old or 13. Like, he had some childhood trauma, and that made him like grow up really fast. So he's a very special individual, and right now, like, I don't know, he's making like millions, and he's kind of like showing off a lot on social media and stuff. And like, I don't know how much of it is real, but to me it looks like he's really done, like he's basically like hit every success milestone that I kind of want to hit. Like, you probably notice yourself, right? Like, you have some of these individuals, they're mostly like influencers, and you basically think like, oh, like this person has achieved everything that I want to achieve. Like, he's basically the person that I want to be. You've probably ever had that feeling, right? Like, where it's a bit of like a painful feeling where you're just confronted by the fact that you didn't make it, but this other person did. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a painful thing. But what I also found out is that it can be a great motivator, because I had people like this before, especially when I was traveling. There were a lot of these very famous travel influencers, and I got inspired by them. But also there were some individuals in there that were just like, I want to be that guy. You know what I mean? Like, they have just achieved every bit of success that I wanted to achieve. And of course, like, you learn throughout life, I guess, that you are probably built a little bit different, or you're not exactly that person, and you should seek your own unique success, right? But still, it sometimes can be a bit of a painful experience, and I kind of had the same thing with this guy. And what I used to do before is I would just like kind of push it away, like I didn't want to be confronted with it. But what I did recently, I think it was like 2 months ago, I was like, you know what? I need to suck it up. Like, I need to suck up that that energy. Like, I need to just sort of feel it, Like, I need to actually like consume his content to sort of just learn the ins and outs. And it kind of feels like a slap in the face, but if you use it correctly, and if you sort of like use that as motivation, it can be super motivating. And that's how it sort of went for me. Now, like, he is younger than me, so I basically cannot achieve everything that he has achieved. But there are some key differences between us. Like, for example, I had a very nice youth and childhood. Like, I, grew up in a very stable family, and grew up very average. Now, he didn't, like, he had like trauma since he was like 8 years old. So, we're already wired differently, and that sort of helped me to sort of say like, okay, he is him, and you are yourself, and you just have to find your own unique journey to success. But you can use what he has done, and one of the things that he has done was monk mode. So how he kind of coined it is it's like an extended period of time. It can be from anywhere from like a week until, I think he said like the maximum you should do is like 3 months, where you basically set a few rules for yourself. So how it works is, well, usually it includes like rules like, blocking out social media or stuff like that. Do this for an extended period of time. And you could also include some things like, for example, a daily workout routine, or I don't know, like a daily meditation routine. Like you can really like the rules are very broad for this, and you kind of have to fit something that works best for you. And so what I did, like when I started with this first session of monk mode, what I noticed at least is that like I was consuming a lot of social media. Like it was pretty crazy. Mostly YouTube, and it mostly happens like it's funny. It mostly happens when you're having like a meal, because you're like by yourself. You're already sitting in front of my computer. Like what you're seeing right now, like this is my desk, and I'm spending like probably 80 to 90% of my time here on a day if it's like a work day, because like I do my work here. I'm a remote developer, so like this is where I have my meetings, this is where I do my work. And also my personal like startup ventures are all pretty much done here. Very occasionally I go to a cafe. I used to do that a bit more, but I mean I got coffee in the house. Like I don't need to spend like like $4 or $5 for a Starbucks coffee and sit at like a small little desk that's usually too small for my elbows to rest. And here I also got like an extra screen. So working from home is just so much more comfortable. But because I'm also like doing other things here, like I'm also eating at this same desk, and then you got your screen in front of you. So what are you gonna do in when you're eating? You cannot work, so you're gonna watch YouTube videos, right? Or play my phone or whatever, And it usually like I was eating for 10 minutes, but then the YouTube video could last 30 minutes. So then you would lose like 20 minutes more because you would keep watching, because you wanted to see the end of the YouTube video. So that's like sort of, it started like that. And then there was also like, watching a lot of YouTube in bed, like before going to sleep. And also, of course, like social media. Now, I do have an app installed. I'll also link this app below. If you're not ready to commit to monk mode, then you could make it more difficult to open social media, for example. So there is this app called 1sec. And 1sec, what it does is whenever you open like something like Instagram, or it can basically be like any app that you set up, before it opens Instagram, it will show like a timer, and you gotta wait 6 seconds. You cannot leave the screen. You gotta wait like, well, you can also set this time up, but I got it on like 6 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that. You cannot leave the screen. You gotta wait until that timer is over, and then you can go to social media. And even I got like a little how to say, like an intention chooser. So it's kind of like you wait for 6 seconds, and then it's going to ask you like, what do you want to do on Instagram this time? Like, what is your state? Are you bored? Are you on the toilet? Something like that. So this already helped quite a bit. I've already been doing this for like, I don't know, like I think I found out about 1sec about 6 months ago. So I've been doing that. There is also like a Chrome extension, so you can also technically have it working on your laptop. But in practice, I found out that it worked, but I needed something more. And that's where monk mode really helped out. So how I started is I basically set out a list of rules. So like no social media, also no news websites, because I do sometimes find myself just reading the news, and the news, right? Like it's usually negative, right? Like it's usually negative information about the world is all doom and gloom, and it really did not help me out. So I also banned out news, and yeah, so like YouTube, news, social media, I think that was about it. I'm not sure what else I banned. I think I did allow myself to I allowed myself to listen to music. That was fine, because the music I usually listen to is like, techno stuff. So it's not really like distracting. It doesn't have like a lot of lyrics. So I allowed music. I allowed like podcasts, but only when I was, for example, in the gym, or no, I think that was it. I think I only allowed listening to podcasts when I was in the gym for this like first time I did monk mode. Um, I didn't add anything. Like I didn't add like a exercising schedule because I was already doing a lot of exercises at the time. Like I was already going to the gym quite regularly. So I basically just wanted to strip out anything that wasn't contributing to the startup thing. So did this for a week. The first time I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do for a week. I think it was like just before Christmas. So like I didn't want to constrain myself too much during the holiday. So I was like, I'll just do a week before Christmas. And wow, like that experience, that first week of monk mode was actually like really cool. Because I had a few like feelings, like I thought that I was really, how to say, like I was actually like mostly dreading those moments that I used to sort of kill the lull with by like watching YouTube. Like for example, very practical examples, when I was eating, I would, now I couldn't watch anything. So like what would you mentally be doing while you were eating? Now I've probably have some listeners that are a bit older than me that probably remember a time when you didn't have YouTube, so you would just eat without any external stimulation and you would be fine. And that's what I noticed as well. Like I would just be fine. Like I would just concentrate on eating. My thoughts would sometimes go interesting places. Like you would just, no, not necessarily interesting places, but you would just think of things that you probably normally don't really think about. Um, Also, other things like toilet sessions, right? Because usually you are on your phone when you're in the toilet, and I couldn't do that. So I don't know. I would just like think of things, and it sounds so crazy, but because like I feel like, especially right now with like Instagram Reels or TikTok and all of these other social media things, like we just don't have any of these down moments anymore. Like we don't have any of these moments where you can just let your mind run. Like you just don't have any external stimulation. You kind of have to internally keep yourself stimulated, and it would work. Like you would just think of things. It sounds pretty crazy, right? Like you would think of things, yes. But that's sort of something that I realized I just did not have a lot of exposure to recently because I was, doing social media so much. So, but yeah, I would just like think about, like decisions that I've made in the past, would sort of like go over some periods in my life where I was not feeling well or kind of wanted to relate that period to where I am right now. Um, but yeah, usually I was just like, or I was just thinking about work, which is actually very productive because instead of like just thinking about work while working, you usually get your best ideas when you're in your downtime. Like, for example, when you're taking a shower or something like that, right? Like, that's when you usually have like this idea of like, like I need to write this down or something like that. And I noticed that I got a lot more of those type of moments where I would be focused on work quite a lot. And then in the downtime, I did feel like I was relaxing, but in my mind, I was still sort of in work mode. And sometimes, or like, it would just like be still like in the background and then you would think of things. So it just, like, I think that was like the biggest advantage of this is where you just do not distract yourself with any external input that like just distracts you. You know what I mean? So like even in your downtime, you could think about the things that are important during a certain day. And oh yeah, and another thing that I found is that like if I was really doing like a large work session, if I would like, for example, if then I would want to have like a little period of time where I would want to watch a video or kind of like a little bit of downtime, I would actually do chores. So I would like wash the dishes or clean the house a little bit, like I would do things that usually I don't really do. Usually I'll have to admit, usually my girlfriend does most of these things. except for laundry. I do most of the laundry stuff. But yeah, I would kind of like look around in the room and I would be like, oh, that needs some cleaning up, or that needs some tidying or something like that. Like that was also one of the things that I found, which also helps, right? Because if you have like a clean environment, you're also more focused, right? Like, so it was definitely beneficial on a lot of different levels that I did not expect, which was very cool. Now, I did find out that after, I would say, the first 5 days, it was starting to become a little bit tiring, because then if you did have like a bit of downtime, you would really be like, like it would just be a little bit annoying. And actually, another thing that I found out as well, which I didn't anticipate beforehand, is I wasn't necessarily missing the content consumption. Like I wasn't necessarily missing the usual videos that I watch. Like I was watching usually like stuff like, vlogs, like those mini documentary, like informational videos, or those from like real life lore with like these useless top 10 cities with yada yada yada, that sort of crap. Which, like you consume it, you probably get smarter, but like if you think about it, like what are you gonna do with all of that information? You probably forget most of it. Like I would watch these videos of like how geomandering is, or what else, like how there was this one about like how like slavery, like back in the USA, like in Mississippi, they had these like areas, and that's where now like mostly African American people, I don't know, just like a bunch of like political or these type of things from Vox. I was usually watching that. But yeah, what are you gonna do with that information? Like it can be helpful, or also the news, right? Like and well, actually about the news, that was the interesting thing. That was the only thing that I started to miss. Like I just did not know what was going on in the world anymore. And I think in December 2023, what was going on? I mean, we just had an election in the Netherlands, so there was like a lot of news about that. And it's like that's sort of like the news is usually what I talk with my family about. So I was sort of like missing that piece, and I was feeling a bit, how to say, not necessarily worried, but like a little bit like anxious, because I just didn't know what was going on in the world. Like I just didn't know, like, yeah, like if I heard, for example, like a loud bang, I'm living in Taiwan, by the way, like outside is like, oh, did the invasion start, Stuff like that, where usually you would just like open the news and you would sort of find out that nothing was going on. That's what I found out after that week, because like, yeah, there wasn't like a whole lot of news updates. But I actually changed that when I did monk mode next, which was in January. So like last month, I did it again. And I allowed myself to consume the news twice a week. So like every Wednesday and Sunday during lunch, I could look at my news apps to sort of stay up to date on that front, but not have it like not like consuming the news too much. Like just like a sort of healthy amount, I guess. But that was so interesting. Like, I never expected that was the thing that I was gonna miss most. Like I did not miss any of the content I was consuming, which actually made me realize that the content I was consuming, like how important that was to me, which wasn't important at all. And that was, I think, a development that sort of happened over the next. Like I did monk mode again in January for 3 weeks that time. And during this time, I indeed I changed the rules a little bit. I added the bi-weekly or the twice a week news check. What else did I change? And I did. Oh yeah, I did allow content, but I only allowed content from which I could learn something that was directly applicable to startups. And that was a very good rule, because that actually completely changed the content that I was consuming. Because I used to consume, like, another famous YouTuber is Johnny Harris. He's got like these amazing documentaries that usually go a bit in depth on like news items. I really enjoyed watching those. But then again, it was content that I didn't have anything to do with. So when I had that rule, I was like, at first I actually still, had my downtime without any content consumption, because it was usually content that I knew existed. There was like these, how to say, like podcasts about startups or something like that. But I just, because it was like a new thing for me, like I never really consumed that type of content. It was sort of a bit daunting because I didn't know if I was gonna like it. I sort of always pushed that away. But at some point, I was like so bored. I was like, I need some stimulation, and I decided to look up one of these startup podcasts, or I think it was like Indie Hacker. There's like this podcast series, or there are a couple where they just talk about like indie hacker journeys or bootstrapped founders, or basically the things that I'm doing right now. And I discovered that that's actually like a lot of fun. And slowly but surely, my whole content sort of shifted to these startup podcasts and that sort of stuff. And that's currently what I'm doing in my downtime. So I'm currently actually not on monk mode. I stopped, I think, 2 weeks ago. Gave myself a bit of, a bit of downtime from it, because it can be a bit challenging at times. And I find myself not even wanting to go back to things like Vox. Like I just consume the content that actually helps me, and I'm having fun with it. Like I'm just enjoying getting, relaxing with some of these podcasts. Like one that I really enjoy right now is called My First Million. That one is a really, really nice podcast. There's also one from a guy called Arvid Kahl, I think he's German. Listen to a few of his, and there are even like ones specifically for the indie hacker community. But that's pretty amazing, right? Like I never really thought that I could actually replace that content consumption with something that's actually good by doing monk mode, like by actually completely depriving myself of any of these type of content stimulation, and sort of reinventing the kind of content that I like to consume. So I basically shifted the way that I consume my content, which is really good. So yeah, I think that's about it. Like that's where I am right now on my monk mode journey. So I indeed, as I said, like 2 weeks ago, I did the last session, which was about 3 weeks, and I might install a new one pretty soon. But even after 3 weeks of monk mode, I found myself just wanting to go to apps like Instagram and stuff a lot less. Like I was like, oh, if I was gonna open that up, like it's like a can of worms, like it's gonna explode sort of thing when you start doing it again. But I do have to admit that especially this last week, I just resort to going back to my old ways a little bit, except for YouTube. Like YouTube is still mostly consuming these startup things again, or mostly like the change content. But things like Instagram Reels, because that's still my old algorithm, right? Like you have less control over what you choose. That's still full of crap. Like you don't want to know my Instagram algorithm. It is not good. It is like the like I read on Twitter, what was it, like last week I think, about mental junk food. That's like YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram Reels, or at least for me, it's real mental junk food. But yeah, sometimes it's still like it feels comfortable, right? Like especially if you're on the toilet or you have some downtime, or you're in public transport or something, you just scroll for a bit. Because like some of the reels are like really funny, like they really make me laugh, and that can sort of help at times. But it's also addictive, because I don't know, man. They made these algorithms so good that it can become a real addiction. So I'll probably institute another monk mode protocol soon. But yeah, that's basically my experience with it. So I would recommend, if you really want to focus on something, you've been putting something off, like maybe starting your own business or learning how to code or whatever it is, try this out. Like for real, especially now with social media being like so much in your face. You could also do it in like steps, you know, like for example, I started with the 1sec app to sort of limit the amount of times that I would at least open Instagram and that sort of stuff. And then for monk mode, I deliberately did not do a long period of time because I just did not know if I could do that. So I started with just 1 week, right? Like 1 week, I thought it's challenging enough because it's still 7 days, you know? But it's not, so it's not like, it's not too much. It's still challenging enough. And I also felt like with the rules that I had in place, like I would definitely challenge myself, but I wouldn't go overboard with, I don't know, like for example, if you want to start working out, you've never worked out before and you suddenly decide to go every day, you know, like that's just impossible of a goal to set for yourself. So that's why I started with 1 week, and like I had the holidays, I just let go. I was being very deliberate about that, and I'm being deliberate about it right now. Like I stopped my last monk mode session. It stopped on the day 2 weeks ago, and I have not decided to do it again. So I'm not just gonna decide now, like, hey, let's do monk mode from tomorrow onwards. I'm really gonna. I usually write it down. Like I have like a Notion document with like all of the rules and also like the time and dates on there as well, which can really help. So not just mentally saying like, oh, tomorrow I'm gonna start monk mode. No, you take some time to prepare, and also it's important to sort of know from yourself like what do you think is challenging, but not too challenging. You know what I mean? Like you can't just cut away all of your social media consumption if you're right now doing it like every night. You know, like you could do it. Like you could start with like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days to sort of test the waters. And also I would do it during a period that is very routineful. That's why I deliberately chose a week in which I knew not a whole lot was going to happen. Like I wouldn't have a lot of travel time, or I would just basically be working, eating, sleeping, and working out. Like that's basically all I was going to be doing that week. So I sort of knew that, I like the only real challenges for me was when I was eating, or when I was going to the toilet, or when I was outside, I don't know, in a restaurant or something like that. Like those were like the only challenges. Like I wasn't traveling around where it can be a lot more difficult to do something like this. So yeah, be mindful about those things. But I would highly recommend it. So Iman Gatsi, thank you so much. I know you're not watching this because you are way above my level, but hey, maybe someday I'll meet him. But yeah, he is, I don't know, man. Check out his channel. It's just crazy. The crazy thing is that he actually started documenting his whole journey as well. Like he started when he was like 15, I think. And he's still got YouTube videos from those days, because those days were like the vlogging days, like everybody was vlogging. So he actually vlogged his whole journey, which is crazy. And now he's got this mansion in Dubai, and I don't know. You might have actually seen him around on TikTok if you're like sort of like me, like you want to like have success and stuff, and then you usually find these like TikToks of these crazy people. But yeah, still very inspiring, of course, but also a bit of a slap in the face of like, he's only 20, what is it, 23, 24, and he's, I don't know. I also feel like it, but that's, I guess, because I'm a different person. Like he's just like buying like expensive cars, and I'm like, come on, dude. Like you've got all this influence, and like like all you're concerned about right now is like expensive cars. Like I just don't get it. Or like watches, like all this like expensive, like that's my motivation right now. Is like I want to be like him, but I don't want to be like him right now. Like I don't want to be the guy to like spend my millions on those expensive. Like I actually really don't want to become like that. To share a bit more of the people that I've recently been inspired by, a big one is Peter Levels, Dutch guy, by the way. He's like a true indie hacker, like a solopreneur who started, I think, like 3 or 4 famous, very successful companies right now. Like it started with Nomad List, and then with AI, he started like Photo AI or like Interior AI, and he's doing like 3 million a year, but he stayed very the same. Like he's still only spending, like he said, like only 5,000 a month and just living in Airbnbs. He's like a true digital nomad as well. So he's still like really staying the same person, even though he's got like wild success. And also recently I've been on Twitter a lot. Like that's one of the things that I definitely felt has changed quite a bit, is that I am a lot more on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter. It's TravelingTice, just like my other YouTube channel or Facebook or whatever, TravelingTice. And I'm sharing quite a lot of the progress of my business ventures on there as well, which is really cool. And that has also been quite a recent discovery. Like I think about 3 weeks ago, I started to be on Twitter more because I found out that a lot of the people that I aspire to become right now are on Twitter. So that's been a pretty good development. So yeah, please follow me on Twitter as well if you want to learn more and know more, or follow me more about the startup ventures. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think this was quite a good one. Took some practice to learn sort of the skills. I also decided to do like my camera settings a bit more manual, because last time it was like all over the place. But if you're listening to this, then that doesn't matter to you, of course. But no, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching or listening. Thank you for subscribing. And yeah, look forward to seeing you again, or how to say that? Like, yeah, I'm not really seeing you or hearing from you. It's the other way around. Like, look forward to you seeing me or you listening to me again, I guess, in the next episode. I'm not entirely sure when it's gonna be, but yeah, let's make one again pretty soon. So, all right, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching or listening, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.